In this chapter, the goal is to become aware of different cultures and how they affect business people. To be successful in relationships with people in other countries, international and domestic business people alike need to be students of culture, but they must first realize that there are other cultures besides their own. So what is culture? Culture are the beliefs, rules, techniques, institutions, and artifacts that characterize human populations, such as worldviews and social rules. Society is composed of people living within their cultural frameworks, so to understand a specific society, how it works, what its norms and values are, we need to understand its culture. Thus, since culture and society are so closely related, anthropologists combine the terms into socioculture. Culture affects all business functions such as marketing, human resource, production, accounting and finance, and preferred leadership styles. For example, in marketing, the wide variety across cultures and attitudes and values require that many firms use different marketing mixes in different markets. An example is Coors had a slogan that said, "Turn it loose." But once it was translated into Spanish for consumers in Spain, it read, "Suffer from diarrhea." Through these errors is where companies learn the importance of understanding their markets. One way managers build a quick sense of culture is to use a framework. Frameworks help managers understand behavior patterns across a variety of borders. Here are some popular frameworks I will describe in a little bit. But we need to recognize the limitations of these frameworks and use them to help us understand the complex reality we face, not to limit our perceptions. Hall classifies cultures based upon communication styles and the role context plays in communication patterns. Context is the relevant environment beyond the explicit communication, such as body language, speakers placed in a room, or who speaks before who. Low context cultures have explicit communication styles, while in high context cultures, communication tends to be implicit and indirect. We see this in places like Japan, China, Latin America, and Middle Eastern countries, while low context cultures are usually in places like North America. The picture on the right has examples for high context and low context for countries and for jobs. These 5 dimensions help managers understand how different cultures affect organizations and management styles. They also assist in showing that management systems and philosophies don't apply to all cultures. The first dimension is individualism, collectivism. High individualistic cultures reward independence and outstanding individuals, while highly collectivistic cultures are more worried about the overall well-being of the group that they are associated with. Then there is power distance, which is the extent to which the less powerful members in organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. Next is uncertainty avoidance, which is the extent to which a society is comfortable or uncomfortable with unstructured situations. Next is masculinity versus femininity, which is the extent to which cultural emphasizes personal achievement and materialism versus relationships and quality of life. Side note, to think that feminine cultures are not concerned with production and business success is false. The last dimension is long-term versus short-term orientation, which is the level to which people and culture will persevere to overcome obstacles they cannot overcome with their own strength.
The first 5 dimensions address the culture's patterns for relationships among people, and the final 2 have to do with time and nature. The first is universalism versus particularism. This dimension addresses whether rules or relationships regulate behaviors. A culture's values that are universalist apply to all people. The rules are for everyone in all situations, while particularist values consider the context. Next is individualism versus communitarianism, and you will note it's similar to Hofstede's individual collectivism dimension. Next is neutral versus affective. This dimension describes culture's rules for display of emotions. People in neutral cultures tend to withhold emotions, while people in affective cultures are much more expressive. Next is specific versus diffuse. The specific diffuse dimension distinguishes among cultures based on the social patterns for public and private life. In specific cultures, there is a small private life that is kept private, with a large public life. In diffuse culture, there is a large private life and a smaller public life that is more difficult to enter. Next is achievement versus ascription. This dimension focuses on the basis of social status and reward. Ascription cultures consider who a person is by family, lineage, or age, while you gain status and achievement cultures for what you do. Next is attitude towards time. This is where culture is either focused on the past, the present, or the future. And finally, attitudes toward the environment, which is our relationship with nature. Are we in harmony with nature, or are we trying to control it?
Culture shows itself through all parts of society, such as aesthetics, religion, language, and material culture. Some special focus is on gift-giving and nonverbal communication. Gift giving, for example, in Japan, you would never show up to someone's house empty-handed. This is taboo in their culture. But many organizations have policies related to gift giving designed to separate this cultural pattern from bribery or extortion, so managers will want to keep their organization guidelines in mind. Also, nonverbal communication is very important. For example, making the circle OK sign with the thumb and the forefinger is friendly in the United States, but it means you're worth nothing in France and Belgium, and is vulgar in Greece and Turkey.
Alright, so first off, we have Porter's Diamond Model, which considers 4 aspects of a country's economic environment that affects its competitive position. These are the factor conditions, related and supporting industries, demand conditions, and a firm's strategy, structure, and rivalry. Porter suggests that competitively successful countries are the ones that have the most favorable diamonds. Next, we have geography. Geographical proximity is often a major reason for trade between nations and plays a role in the formation of trading groups as well. With proximity, knowledge of the country is likely, delivery is faster, freight costs are lower, and service costs lower too. The geographical features of a country or region create contextual differences that contribute to economic, cultural, political, and social conditions important to international business. Topography. These are surface features such as mountains, plains, deserts, and bodies of water that contribute to differences in economies, cultures, politics, and social structures, both in nations and in regions of a single country. These topographic features, the features on the land surface, can both hinder and aid distribution. They also may require that products be altered. Bodies of water, unlike mountains, deserts, and tropical forests, attract people and facilitate transportation. Water, an important natural resource, is necessary for life and critical for industry, yet invisible to most consumers when used in agriculture and manufacturing. One significant feature associated with bodies of water is the inland waterway, significant because it provides inexpensive access to interior markets. Before the construction of railways, water transportation was the only economically practical carrier for bulk goods moving over long distances. The importance of waterways relative to railroads, however, has diminished everywhere with one exception: Europe's Rhine waterway, the world's most important inland waterway system. Next is climate. Climate is important because it sets the limits on what people can do physically and economically. Where the climate is harsh, there are few human settlements, but where it is permissive, there tends to be population density. Location, topography, and climate tend to be permanent facts. In contrast, natural resources present business people with sources of raw material that, unlike location, topography, and climate, are extractable and malleable. Natural resources are anything supplied by nature on which people depend. The principal natural resources important to business productivity capacity are energy and non-fuel minerals. Natural resources that are sources for energy are either non-renewable or renewable. The non-renewable sources are fossil fuels, including petroleum, coal, and natural gas. Once we use them, their supplies are depleted. Nuclear energy is also renewable, but on a quite different scale than our fossil fuels. Non-renewable energy sources include petroleum or crude oil. This is the cheapest source of energy and a raw material for plastics, fertilizers, and other industrial applications. The world is running out of oil, but as to when is uncertain. Next is nuclear power plants. They generate little pollution in their normal operation. So as the price of oil rises and new designs are available, nuclear power use has also increased. Fewer nuclear power plants are being retired, and those in service are being used at a higher capacity. Next is coal. Much like nuclear power, this was predicted to be on its decline as an energy source, largely because it pollutes heavily, but actually just the opposite is the case. Coal's consumption is projected to increase 49% through 2030, largely due to increase in China and India. Next is natural gas. This is the cleanest burning among the fossil fuels. Its greenhouse gas emissions significantly less than oil or coal. So for renewable energy sources, there are at least 8 renewable alternative energy sources. These include hydroelectric, solar, wind, geothermal, waves, tides, biomass fuels such as ethanol, and ocean thermal energy conversion. So biomass is a category of renewable energy fuels based on photosynthesis, the process through which plants transform the sun's energy into chemical energy. Environmental sustainability. This is the economic state in which the demands placed upon the environment by people and commerce can be met without reducing the capacity of the environment to provide for future generations. Environmental sustainability is both local and global. You may have heard the phrase, act locally, think globally. This is the truth of sustainability. Approaches involve taking care of the present needs of the business and the needs of future generations at the same time. So there are 3 characteristics of evolving sustainable business practices that are widely agreed upon. These are limits, interdependence, and equity. Limits have to do with the recognition that environmental resources are exhaustible. Water, soil, and air can become toxic, and their use needs to be informed by awareness of that danger. Interdependence describes the relationship among ecological, social, and economic systems. Action in one system affects the others. Equity and distribution. This suggests that for the interdependence to work, there cannot be vast differences in the distribution of gains, especially in globalizing world where information is increasingly more open. Vast inequities may lead to unrest and violence. A major theory in this chapter is the stakeholder theory. This is an understanding of how a business operates that takes into account all identifiable interest holders. It forces a business to address underlying values and principles. It pushes managers to be clear about how they want to do business, specifically what kind of relationships they want and need to create with their stakeholders to deliver on their purpose. Stakeholder theory also suggests that the tensions among the varying stakeholders in a business environment can be balanced. The business then becomes about societal context. So how can we use this information to form our worldview in relationship to our faith? I believe that we are called to love one another and take care of this earth that we've been given to rule over and be wise with it. I think conservation is a vital and practical way to make a difference. Just being mindful about our actions and how they affect others and the earth is a huge beginning step to take. In order to change, we must be aware of our actions and their consequences. This earth is a gift to us, and we should be grateful for it. This means not being wasteful, helping others, and putting others above ourselves.